All right, good morning, everybody here in school and to our friends at home. We're going to continue our work with fractions this morning, and we're going to be working with equivalent fractions. Okay, so let's read our learning target together on the count of one class. 3, 2, 1. We can name equivalent fractions using fraction strips and number lines. So we've been representing fractions. Those pictures are either fraction strips. In the last few days, we've been using number lines to represent fractions. So today, we're going to find equivalent fractions. What does the word equivalent sound like to you in math? It sounds really close to the word, thank you, it sounds really close to the word equal, doesn't it? And so that's what equivalent fractions mean. It means that they are the same size, they have the same value, they represent the same amount. So, if we look up here, here's a really cool, nice colored set of fraction strips. So I'm just going to kind of introduce the idea of equivalent fractions to you using this. All right? We have one whole. We have halves, thirds, fourths, fifths, sixths, eighths, tenths, and twelfths. So there's some missing ones. We don't have any ninths. We don't have any sevenths in there. But we have a lot of different fraction strips. One thing I want you to notice, all of my wholes are the same size, aren't they? They all start here and end here. So that's really, really important. Your wholes need to be the same size. And that's why on our practice today, I drew your fraction strips and your number lines, so that, or not the number lines, but you have a video or a copy that has the number lines all the same size. So really important that your wholes are the same size. So when I say equivalent fractions, I'm going to point to 1/2 here, okay? And I want to find a fraction that's equivalent to 1/2. So if I come down here, I don't see any line in the thirds, but when I come down to my fourths, and I look at this, if this is 1/2 right here, and I come down to fourths, aha, those are the exact same size, aren't they? So those are equivalent fractions. So we would say 1/2 is equal or equivalent to, well, how many fourths is that? It's 1/4, 2/4. It's equal to 2/4. That, in a nutshell, boys and girls, is finding equivalent fractions using fraction strips. That's what we're going to be doing today, but you're going to draw your own fraction strips. Let's see, are there any other ones that are equal to 1/2? If I keep sliding my finger down here, aha, here's another one. So 1/2 is also equivalent to, very good, 1/2 also is equivalent to 3/6. Let's start at 1/2 again and follow down. Aha, there's another one. Not 1/8, but 4/8. 1/8, 2/8, 3/8, 4/8. So 1/2 is also equal to 4/8. And I can keep going. It's also equal to how many tenths? 5/10. Very good. 1/2 equals 5/10. And also it equals good, 6/12. So 1/2, we can find a lot of different fractions that equal 1/2. And if you look at the pattern here, there's a pattern you might notice between the numerator and the denominator when we're finding fractions that equal 1/2. Does anybody see the pattern? So we have 2/4, 3/6, 4/8, 5/10, 6/12, 1/2. What is that pattern? Clear. Okay. Well, I like the fact, I want you to zero in on when you look at them individually. So you are kind of right. It's kind of like skip counting. 2/4, 3/6, 4/8. Can anybody describe it a different way? So that's exactly what I want you to recognize. But can you describe it a different way, Aubrey? You double it and get 4. Very good. That's what I want you to see as well. So you take 2, you double it, you get 4. You take 3, you double it, you get 6. Okay? You can also say this. Anybody else want to share? Here.
Okay, so what I realized, it's 1, 2, go ahead. If you go right there, it's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then it's the denominator comes by 2, so 4, 6, 8.
Okay, and that's true too. But what I want you to see is the denominator is double the numerator. You can also say that 2 is half of 4. You can say 3 is half of 6. 4 is half of 8. 5 is half of 10. 6 is half of 12. 1 is half of 2. So just kind of a cool pattern there that I wanted you to see if you could pick up on. So thank you all of you who contributed to that. All right, now I want you to go to your worksheet. So we're going to draw a fraction strip and try to identify some equivalent fractions. And friends at home, this is part of your template. So you can watch the video, go back and forth between the template and what we're doing here. So if you look at our first page of our template, we have 3 fraction strips. And this is where you tried really hard to make them all the same size. Okay? On the first fraction strip, let's circle it. The unit we want to represent is halves. So do your best and make the first fraction strip halves. How many equal parts will we need for halves, boys and girls? 2. So I'm going to try to find the middle here. I'm going to step back and just see if I found the middle. That doesn't look too bad, right? And then what do we do as soon as we partition them? We label, thank you Jackson, we label each part, right? 1/2, 1. Okay, now, on the next fraction strip, we want to partition it to show fourths. So how many equal parts will we need? 4. Remember, I'm not asking lines, I'm asking how many equal parts. So I could ask you how many lines do we have to draw, but make sure you're listening to my question. So I ask, how many equal parts will we need? We will need 4 equal parts. So this is how I want you to do it. Use your halves and draw the same line down the middle there. Make sure you're using your halves because we want our fraction strips to be on the same scale. Now that I have halves, we all know how to make fourths, right? We split this part in half, and we split this part in half, and go ahead and label each one with your unit fraction. Those are some nice looking fraction strips, boys and girls. All right, so we have our fourths. Friends at home, that's what you would do as well. Make sure you're doing it in the same manner that we are. Use the fraction strip above to help you. Okay, now the next one we need to make eighths. So that means 8 equal parts. So what we're going to do is we're going to use the same lines we use for fourths. So you can see my lines are right above each other. And then once I have my fourths, what do I do next to make eighths? Split them all in half. Remember, I don't want you yelling out when you take the opportunity away for your class. Okay, if I split each one of those in half, and then I want to make sure I count and make sure I do indeed have 8 parts. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I do, and then I'm going to label each one with the unit fraction. Good habit to always do this. Each one of these parts represents 1. All right, so now we have some pretty good looking fraction strips, don't we? They want us to use our fraction strips to help us name equivalent fractions. So first of all, we're going to take 1/2. Now, if you would like to get out a crayon and color in 1/2, it might help you see it better, shade it. Friends at home, if you want to use the highlighter on the Seesaw, the highlighter tool, you could highlight 1/2. Okay, I'm going to use my red marker. And I'm going to shade in 1/2. Don't color too hard because you want to see your unit. So I would use a pale color like yellow or pale orange or something. You can use your highlighter, yep. That's not yellow. Okay, so what is 1/2 equal to? Let's go to our fourth line. And let's start shading in fourths until we come to the same place on our fraction strip. Is 1/4 equal to 1/2?
No.
No. Let's color in 2/4. Is 2/4 equal to 1/2?
Yeah.
It sure is. The exact same amount of each fraction strip is colored in. So we would say 1/2 is equal to or equivalent to 2/4. probably did not do this in the right order because I should have done the smallest one first. Now, let's look at the next one. I have 1/4, so 1/4 goes right here. What is 1/4 equal to? It's not equal to a half. But if we color in, thank you Jackson, if we color in 1/4 and we come down here and we start coloring in eighths, there's 1/8, is that equal to 1/4? No. But what if we color in 2/8?
Yep.
Yep, there it is, right there, the same amount of each is colored in. So we can say 1/4 is equal to or equivalent to 2/8, and our fraction strips help us find that equivalent fraction. Okay, well now let's go to 2/4. We already know that 2/4 equals 1/2. That was the very first equivalent fraction we discovered, right? But how many eighths would 2/4 be equivalent to? Lucas, how many eighths would you have to color in to make 2/4?
4.
Very good. So let's keep coloring our eighths until we get to 2/4. And there we are. 2/4 equals 1/8, 2/8, 3/8, 4/8. 2/8 equals 2/4 equals 4/8. You guys see that? All right, now we got to find a fraction equivalent to 3/4. So what should we do? Let's color in 3/4, shall we? Well, when I color in 3/4, I can't go up to halves and find an equivalent fraction then. There's nothing there at that line. But what if I come down to my eighths? So everybody trace with your finger from the end of 3/4 down to your eighths. Could we color in a couple more eighths and come up with an equivalent fraction? So let's go ahead and color in. That will not make an equivalent fraction, but if I color in this one, sure enough, look at that. Both of those fraction strips are now colored in the same amount. And so now let's name those equivalent fractions. So now we can say 1/4, 2/4, 3/4 is equal to or equivalent to 1/8, 2/8, 3/8, 4/8, 5/8, 6/8. 3/4 is equal to 6. Okay, and our fraction strips help us find those equivalent fractions. Okay. Now, I put others here. So now this is where I'm going to really push you. What other equivalent fractions could you find here? We have 1/2 is equal to 2/4. We have 1/4 is equal to 2/8. We have 2/4 is equal to 4/8. We have 3/4 is equal to 6/8. There's at least a couple more equivalent fractions. So really use your noggin. And what other equivalent fractions could you find? Val?
You could find 2/2 is equal to 8/8.
Oh, look at that. What if we color in the whole thing? She said 2/2 would equal 8/8 because then both of them would be colored in their entirety, right? So is 2/2 equal to 8/8? Look at boys and girls, touch it with your fingers. This is 2/2, right? And this is 8/8. Are they the same? Yeah. Nice job, Val. Any other ones then? Now that you see what Val's doing, I bet you can come up with a couple more. Gideon, what else? Very good. 4/4 is equal to 2/2. We want to say 2/2. So here's 4/4, right? Can you guys see that? 4/4. If you want to put your finger on either end, and 2/2 are the same amount. Nice job. Khalid, got another one?
1/4 is equal to 2/8.
Okay, I think we have that one here. But I did. You're right. That is equal, but we have that one. So we have 2/2 is equal to 8/8. We have 2/2 is equal to 4/4. I think we could come up with another one we haven't mentioned yet. Owen. Very good. Look at it, boys and girls. Here's 4/4 is equivalent to 8/8. Let's write it. So you got all of the whole number fractions. And boys and girls, these are all what we call whole number fractions, and they all represent the same whole number. What number do all of these whole number fractions represent? They all represent the whole number, Corey? Think about it. They all represent, whether it's 2/2, 4/4, or 8/8, what whole number do they all represent? No, a whole number. I need a whole number. Rago. Very good. They all represent one whole. So let's add that if you can. You think they all represent one whole. Now, there are a couple other ones. This is really tricky. I don't know if anybody can come up with this. There's another fraction. Probably would make more sense on the number line than it does with the fraction strips. Cam, you got one?
Okay, so 4/8 is equal
Okay, we have that one. No, we don't. You're right, we don't. 4/8 is equal to 1/2. Let's write it. 4/8 is equal to 1/2. You're right, Brian. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Eighths is equal to 1/2. Very nice one. What? Yeah, this is a different one. 4 is equal to 1. Okay, there's something else, and like I said, it's not as evident with the strips as it would be on the number line. What other equivalent fraction do we have, Eli?
1 whole is equal to 4/4.
Well, we kind of have that. 4/4 equals 8/8 equals 1 whole. We have those. We have all the whole number ones. But think, Raga. Right, because that doesn't equal anything else. If you go to 7/8 and trace up, it doesn't equal the same thing. Yeah. What? Okay. This is really tricky. Well, you know what we're gonna do? What?
0 halves equals 0/4.
Very good. That's another fraction. You haven't counted any. So here's 0 halves right here. That's why I said it's more obvious on the number line than it is on the fraction strip.
Yeah.
But 0 halves equals 0/4, which also equals 0/8. And that equals the whole number 0. Okay? Very good, Val. I gotta give you above and beyond for that. That was awesome. Okay? All right, so equivalent fractions using fraction strips is pretty easy. I would probably never expect you to find equivalent fractions without a fraction strip or a number line. So let's try it again. Turn your paper over. We've got 2 new fraction strips. We've got thirds, and we've got 6. You may go, Jackson. So we have to do the partitioning. We've got one fraction strip that we want to represent thirds, and we've got another fraction strip that we want to represent sixths. Guess what? Oh, well, I didn't want you to do that. Okay, so how do we make thirds? In other words, how many equal parts will we need if we're going to represent thirds? Eli, how many equal parts? 3 equal parts, very good. And then, how many lines does that mean we draw for 3 equal parts? Eli? 2 lines. So, go ahead and make your 2 lines. Try your best to make sure they're equal. I'm going to go back here and stand and make sure. Those look pretty good to me. Maybe I can move this one over a little bit. Okay, once you've got 3 equal parts, go ahead and label each one with a unit fraction. Now in our next fraction strip, we want to represent 6. So when we make 6, we want to use our thirds. So this is really important. Use your lines from your thirds fraction strip. So I'm going to trace with my pencil down here. Draw my line, and then I'll have 2 identical fraction strips. Right? Make sure. And then what do I do to make 6? Everybody, I split them in half. So I go from 3 parts to 6 parts. Label them all with your unit fractions. All right, and the first one we want to look at is 1/3. So I'm going to go ahead and color in 1/3. You can shade it in as well with your highlighter. And we want to find a fraction equivalent to 1/3. What could we find equivalent to 1/3? Pam?
1/3 is equivalent to 2/6. And I found out that if it's one or okay, so if the denominator is 3, you just times it by 2. So you do that.
Oh my goodness. That's something I wasn't even going to teach today, Cam, but I'm so glad you brought it up. So how did Cam find a fraction equivalent to 1/3? He started coloring in 6 until he got to the same point of the fraction strip. And so 1/3 does in fact equal 2/6. And look what Cam said, and this is absolutely true. If you want to find an equivalent fraction without a picture, all you do is multiply your numerator and denominator by the same number. And that's really what we did. Look at this, boys and girls. If I take 1/3 and multiply both the numerator and the denominator by 2, 1 times 2 is 2, 3 times 2 is 6. There's your equivalent fractions. Nice job, bud. What did we do? We multiplied the numerator by 2 and got 2. We multiplied the denominator times 2 and got 6. 1/3 and 2/6 are equivalent fractions. Really good job, buddy. All right, let's color in 2/3. Go ahead and color in 2/3. You better get caught up there, bud. Use your thirds to make your 6. Got 3 equal parts. All right, I've got 2/3 colored in. If you want, come down to your 6 and see how many 6 you'll need to color in to make 2/3. All right, do I have enough 6 colored in on my fraction strip or no? No, so let's color in one more. And now when I color in this one more, sure enough, I have the same amount. So 2/3 equals how many 6? Count in class. 1, 6, 2, 6, 3, 6, 4, 6. And let's just see if Cam's theory works out for this fraction. Let's take our fraction 2/3. Let's multiply both the numerator and the denominator by 2, right? That's what Cam suggested. 2 times 2 is?
4.
And 3 times 2 is?
6.
What equivalent fractions did we find? 2/3 and 4/6. Really impressive. That's pretty cool. Fractions are one of the coolest numbers in the world. All right? And now, last but not least, this is the one that you guys discovered on the previous page. Let's color in 3/3. And we want to find a fraction equivalent to 3/3. How many 6 do we have to color in? You've got to keep going by. You've got to label all of them. How many 6 do we need to color in, Raga? Yep, color in 2 more 6, and then we will have 1, 6, 2, 6, 3, 6, 4, 6, 5, 6, 6, 6. They will both be completely colored in. And one more time, if we want to look and see if Cam's theory works, 3/3. Multiply both by 2. 3 times 2 is 6. 3 times 2 is 6. Our equivalent fractions are 3/3 and 6/6. That, boys and girls, is finding equivalent fractions using fraction strips. Show me, fist to 5. How do you feel about that? Okay, it is important that your holes are the same size. That's why Mrs. Reed drew your fraction strips for you. It's also very important, and friends at home, it's really important. When you draw your thirds, you've got to use those same lines. So look what I did. I use those same lines to make my 6, okay? Or else your fractions will not be equivalent. Okay, let's go on. Now we're going to try it with number lines. So go ahead and turn to your next page. We're going to find some equivalent fractions using number lines. All right, you're going to want to probably pull your last 2 pages apart Because first of all, we have number lines and then we're gonna identify equivalent fractions. We will wanna look at our number lines to help us, okay? So let's get these labeled. My first fraction strip, Jackson, how many equal parts are there on my first fraction strip?
There's
2 equal parts, let's count them fast. 1, 2. So if there's 2 equal parts, what's my fraction? What do yours have?
Half.
So let's label it. I'm gonna put 0 halves up here. I'm gonna box that because it's a whole number fraction. Then I'm gonna put 1 half and 2 halves, and I'm gonna box this one because again, it is a whole number fraction. It represents the whole number 1. So all we do is count, boys and girls. 0 halves, 1 half, 2 halves. At this point, that's why it's a little easier to see on the number line. At this point, we have counted 0 halves. Okay, the next one, how many equal parts are there? Owen? How many equal parts? Three equal parts. Good job, bud. 3 equal parts means what unit, boys and girls? It means thirds. So here we've counted 0 thirds. Whoops. Here we've counted 1 third, 2 thirds, and here we've counted 3 thirds. I'm going to put it above, and I'm going to box it because it's a special whole number fraction. How many of you think you can do the next 3 on your own? We have 4 equal parts here. We have 6 equal parts here, and we have 8 equal parts here. Go ahead and label those, and then we'll start identifying equivalent fractions. Just raise your hand if you need help. When you're done, you can hold your paper up and let your neighbor look at it and make sure that you both are in agreement on how to label those fractions. All right. For our friends at home, I'm going to go over this, and you guys can check your work up here with mine as well. So on our third number line, I counted 1, 2, 3, 4 equal parts. Now, some of you got mixed up and you started counting the tick marks. You don't want to count the tick marks. Picture a fraction strip above that. How many parts would it be divided into? 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 equal parts means my unit is fourths, so I would write 0 fourths, 1 fourth, 2 fourths, 3 fourths, and down here 4 fourths. Box it because it represents the whole number 1. Okay, on my next number line, I'm going to count the equal parts. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 equal parts. 6 equal parts means my unit is 6. At 0, I have counted 0 6. And then it would be 1 6, 2 6, 3 6, 4 6, 5 6, and 6 6. That's the whole number 1. And then on my last one, how many equal parts did you find, Ori, on the last one? You are absolutely right. There are 8 equal parts. So I'd start with 0 eighths, 1 eighth, 2 eighths, 3 eighths, 4 eighths, 5 eighths, 6 eighths, 7 eighths, and 8 eighths. Again, 8 eighths, I'm going to box it because it represents the whole number 1. Okay, now what I would suggest is that you pull off this last page. It looks like this. So Goodness me, there are 12 different equivalent fractions they want us to find using our number lines. I'm going to help you do some of them, and then I'm going to have you do the sum independently. Okay, so pull this paper off, because you want to be able to look at your number lines while you fill this in. Okay? I would not expect you to be able to find the equivalent fractions without the visual aid of the number line, okay? So, because I want to leave this up here, I'm going to have to write my fractions along the side here. So number 1, I'd like somebody to read number 1 for me. What does number 1 say? Ori. 1/3 equals how many 6? Well, let's go to our 1/3 number line, everybody. Find 1/3, point to it. Point to it, Eli. And then we have to figure out how many 6 that equals. So I like what you're doing if you're tracing down. So I'm going to kind of trace down here. Aha. 1/3 equals how many 6? 2 6. There's the same point on the number line. They're the same distance from 0. 1/3 we go this far on the number line. 2 6 we go this far on the number line. So 1/3 equals 2 6. Okay, let's look at number 2. Number 2 wants us to do 1/4. 1/4 equals, what is it? How many 8ths? So let's find 1/4 first. Everybody point to 1/4. And then go down to your 8ths number line, and I'm going to kind of trace with a little dotted line. Aha. 1/4 equals how many 8ths, boys and girls?
2
2 8ths. Very good. Now let's go to the end so we get some of the trickier ones done. So let's do the last row, 9, 10, 11, 12, and then I'm going to let you do the rest independently. So we're going to number 9. What number are we doing right now?
9.
Number 9, okay, and it's 0/3. Aha, this is kind of tricky. 0/3 equals how many halves? Well, point to 0/3 on your number lines, boys and girls. Here it is. How many halves does 0/3 equal? 0 halves. Very good. I guess that wasn't so hard, was it? How do you feel about finding equivalent fraction on the number line? It's pretty easy, isn't it? Let's do number 10. Jackson, can I see number 10? What does it say? 2 6 equals how many thirds? Well, go ahead and find 2 6 on your number line. And then you want to trace up to 1/3. Oh my goodness, we already did this, didn't we?
Yeah.
Except we did 1/3 equals 2 6. So 2 6 equals how many thirds if you trace up?
1/3.
1/3. Very good. All right, are we ready for number 11?
Yep.
Please read it for me. Kalia, read number 11 for me.
4 8ths equals how many 4ths?
Equals how many fourths? Well, let's find 4 8ths. So 4 8ths is down here, right? Put your finger on 4 8ths. And we want to figure out how many fourths that is. So travel up. You can draw a dotted line if you want. You're going up to your fourths. Right there it is. 4 8ths is the same or equivalent to 2 fourths. Thank you. And one more together, 12. Number 12. Can you read 12 for me, Freya, please?
Well said. 3/4 equals how many 8ths?
3/4 equals how many 8ths? So find 3/4 with your finger. Find 3/4 with your finger, Owen, on the number lines. And then we got to figure out how many 8ths that is, so that means we have to travel down to the number line that shows us 8ths. And if you look at 3/4, how many 8ths is that equivalent to? It is equivalent to 6 8ths. Very good. And there's that example. If we multiply both the numerator and denominator by 2, we would get 3 times 2 is 6, 4 times 2 is 8. Okay, I want the rest of you to do those ones independently in between. Friends at home, I'm going to stop the video. I'm going to ask you to do the ones in between at home. So you have to do number 3 through 8 independently using your number line. Okay? All right, thank you, boys and girls. I hope you understood how to find fractions, equivalent fractions using both number lines and fraction strips. We'll go over those in a minute. Oh, thank you. Who did that for me? So Freya, I'm coming back boys and girls, so 3/4 is not number 12. Number 12 is what, Clea?
1/2 and how many eighths?
Is equals how many eighths was number 12. So make sure you go to number 12. Okay, again, 1/2, go to 1/2 and figure out how many eighths it was. I apologize, I should have had a copy of that in front of me. 1/2, travel down to the eighths. How many eighths have you counted when you're at 1/2, Jackson? 4 eighths, 1/2 was 4 eighths. Okay? Thank you, Clea, for bringing that to my attention. Okay, boys and girls, now I'm gonna let you go. So I think the other one we did was number 8, maybe? I can't remember. But anyways, you're going to do 3 through 8 independently. We're gonna go over those here in class in just a minute.